Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my rant review discussion of A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. I did not like this book. I thought it was frustrating, boring. I was baffled by this book. And I love murder mystery. I love Agatha Christie. This is a genre that should work for me. And if you love it, if you love this author, if you love this book, good for you. This is my opinion, and it did not work for me on any level. Didn't like the characters, didn't like the story. I could not believe some of the things that were left out and some of the decisions that were made in this book. And it just, the believability is not there for me with this one at all. And so I feel like I was kind of in this, good, spot with reading as far as I had so many good recommendations for October, like Call of Cthulhu and The Willows and even Lois the Witch. I really liked all those books. So I was doing good. And then I saw this book recommended for me on Audible, and it was their daily deal. And nowhere on there does Audible tell you that this is the third book in this series. Thankfully for me, I guess, it is kind of standalone in that I didn't necessarily need to know, but it would have been much more helpful with two of these characters that are established in the first two books to know all that before going into this third book. But you could read this and you will still understand the plot. But thank you, Audible. That really frustrated me. I don't know if I said Kindle, but I mean Audible. Super annoying. And yeah, it does affect my review. So I will say, as I'm going along, why this would have been different if I had known this about this character or whatever. Also, I don't know if I hate modern writing or modern writers or if they hate me, but I really can't get behind this, there are no likable characters. Characters nowadays seem to be written without character, as it were, and I don't like it. I don't like that there's nobody to root for. And I think we really went overboard with morally gray characters, not understanding that that's an outlier. That's not everyone. But modern writers seem to take this as all people are flawed, therefore no one is good. There are no heroes. There are villains, and there are not, there's anti-heroes, I guess, but there are no heroes. And also, no one is ever just a normal good person. Everybody has these dark secrets, these flaws, or they're just plain unlikable. They're just caught up in selfishness in their own world, and I just don't understand where it became this really cool thing to just have no likable characters. Lucy Foley, Colleen Hoover, this seems to be what they, and obviously now Peter Swanson, write a lot of characters where I have encountered a lot of really good people in my daily, life, and I feel like they exist in the world, so they should exist in books too. But these characters, and this is not a character-rich novel. There are a few characters. So to make them all in this kind of morally gray or you're evil, this is not the variety that I need. So that's my thoughts. I would give this 1 star. I am not talking, when I'm criticizing the writing, I'm sorry about the light in here, storm again. I'm talking about the way that the characters are portrayed, the way that they're written, the way the story flows, the believability of the scenarios, because this is a murder mystery, kind of. I am not talking about the technical aspect of the writing. I'm not talking about sentence structure or things like that. I'm talking about why, this didn't work for me personally. I'm not, Peter Swanson, I think the story was written fine. From a technical standpoint, it's fine. I do not like the story. So 1 star. I will not recommend this. If you have read the other 2 books and you really, really love them, you might like this 3rd book. But like I said, I have only read this 3rd book. So I'm just coming at this from, I don't know what this is. I don't know why this is. So I'm going to start getting into the plot and the characters. And I will be going spoilers throughout because it'll be too hard for me to talk without just saying spoilers. And if you don't want to know spoilers, come back after you've read the book and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. But let's talk about the characters. So the first character we're going to talk about is our first murder victim. And I knew she was a victim because she was written like a victim. And I didn't feel sorry for her. I wanted to. I should have. But it was like this guy went on Twitter or, sorry, TikTok. Like he went on like social media and was like, "Oh, I need some buzzwords for this character." And so in the first chapter, we get polyamory, edibles, and charcuterie boards. And not all from this character, but I was like, did you just scroll TikTok and you're like, what are the youths into now? Because I did not understand this character and why she was written like this. She's at a teacher's conference. She's a teacher. She's excited. And one night she gets drunk and starts telling the other teachers that she is polyamorous. I don't think that the author understood what polyamorous was, and I will never forgive Peter Swanson for making me look this up. But I don't think he understood that, like, that's not what people mean. Like, you're not married and polyamorous and then going out and having one night stands, which is what he seems to think that this means. Like, oh, we're in a really loving, committed relationship, and that's why we're so free with each other. Like, why would we limit ourselves to just being married with each other? Like in the sexual aspect, like, let's go have one night stands. I don't think that's what polyamory means, but if you really know, I guess you could tell me in the comments. But when I looked it up, it didn't seem like that's really what it meant. Like, it seems like that's not really the case. But that's what Peter Swanson is writing, that she's telling everyone she came to this conference and she was looking for, one night stand, and her husband was all about it. Great. So she can't find anybody. Like, oh, bummer, but she's drunk and she's telling everybody that. And then she later meets a guy, and immediately, they're back at their room, and she's talking about how, thankfully, this encounter was short because I could not have handled more than I had to hear about this sexual thing. And so that happens, and then she's like talking to him and says like, oh yeah, I just think you, like, it was fine, but like, I think you fear sexually liberated women. I was like, you're gonna be killed. You're gonna die. And he says, yeah, maybe, like, what do you fear? And she's like, heights. And he's like, oh, there's a balcony here. And she is like, yeah, I don't, but I'm so scared I wouldn't go out there. He's like, oh, come out here with me. And she's like, well, I just had an edible, and like, I guess I'm drunk, had an edible, just slept with somebody, I don't know, why not? She goes out there and of course gets pushed off the balcony, and her name was Josie, and I think we're supposed to feel sad. And I think that the author did nothing to make her seem like a believable character. If you are in any kind of relationship where you are going outside that relationship to find sexual partners, I am just going to say, please let someone know. Please contact them. Please, like, say, hey. I mean, like, as far as I know, even people who hook up on Tinder are like sending people their location, just be like, hey, in case I never come back, someone will know where I am. Like, this just seems like common sense, but this is a full-grown woman, an adult, a teacher, and she's just drunk, had her edible, and is like, hey, I'm just going to go off with this guy I know nothing about. I won't alert my husband. I won't tell anybody. So her death gets ruled a suicide. That is completely unbelievable that her death would be ruled a suicide. There is no way. There would be physical evidence. There would be physical evidence on the bed, on her. I don't like to be graphic, and I am so annoyed that this book is making me talk about this, but the fact that this guy could do that, walk right out of that hotel room, or what I think was like a dorm room or something that they were staying, because it was a teacher conference or something like that. But there's no way that there would not be any evidence that she was not alone. And I hate that this book like doesn't even bother with that. They're like, oh yeah, well, we think she jumped. We know, like, her husband tells us she's deathly afraid of heights, would never have gone out on that balcony like by herself. There's no way, but like, yep, suicide. Okay, so moving on. So this then puts us with one of our kind of main characters, Martha. And Martha's husband is Alan, and he works at these conventions. He sells things like novelty items for schools, like buttons with like math equations and funny things, and shirts with like, literature sayings and stuff like that. And Martha, immediately we know she wasn't sure about marrying Alan, and she has this very like, I was baffled by her character. Like, she talks about how they met and why, like, how she ended up marrying him, but she's not enthusiastic about it. She doesn't really want to marry him. So the whole time I'm like, why? Martha's a librarian. And right now I'm like, you have not established this character did she think that she was getting older and she wanted to get married? Or did she think that her time was running out? And so she thought, okay, well, this is my last chance to get married. Did she feel like she was letting Alan down by not marrying him? There's no reasons given. Martha says a lot of weird things. And I'm not like saying this is a reflection on Peter Swanson and his views on, relationships, but it was like at one point she's later looking at their wedding album, and she's like, she says, why do humans, she says the whole wedding album makes her cringe. And she says, why do humans want to celebrate their relationships? There's something almost unbearable about it. And I'm like, poor Alan. I know he's going to start being suspected as being like a serial killer, obviously, because, we know that the first girl was killed at a teacher's conference and he goes to these conferences. But my gosh, if I felt that way about my relationship, like, why are you in this? She says this a lot. Like, she has a very odd view about her marriage and relationship with Alan, and it's like she never justifies it. She's not like, well, I got a vibe or a feeling, or like, for all she knows, he's the best, greatest guy. I mean, of course he's not, because that's not how you write characters, but like, she just seems so, it's just never explained. I don't understand. I don't know how we got here. And later you find out that she has like this thing about having a love curse, which also is just not explained. It's just kind of tossed in that she thinks she was cursed and that it messes with her relationships, but also it doesn't, like I said, it's not really explained. It's just like she vaguely says, I think I have a love curse. So Martha, she's going to be one of our main characters. She starts to notice as her husband Alan is coming home, like she sees like maybe a blood stain on his shirt. And she notices one night he's outside and he is like coming home from a conference, and he like changes like his facial expression very like oddly, like he's like practicing his smile for when he goes in and greets her. And she's like, that's not something a normal person would do. Like, that's not how human beings are. I'm like, okay, Martha, it's a good detective work here. And so she starts looking up the conferences and what's happened there, and she notices that everywhere he's gone, there seems to be these unexplained, deaths, or even at one point there was a woman who was assaulted, but she survived. So she's starting to kind of have these doubts about this man. She feels like she never really knew him. And then she's, I never really knew anybody. And it's like Martha's a very weak character. I'm sorry, Martha. Like, I never really connected with her. I didn't understand her reasoning behind her decisions, because it's never given. Why did she marry Alan? Why did she do, why did she feel like they were good for each other? She doesn't say that. Just like, well, I did because I did. And now I think weddings are cringe, and I can't handle looking at our wedding album. I don't understand this woman. And I think that she could have been a much more interesting character if she would have been given a character. But she's more of a vehicle to get us to other characters in the story. So, Alan is her husband, and like I said, she's starting to suspect him. Flipping in my notes. So, because Martha, like I said, she's more of a weak character, she doesn't know how to address any of this. She doesn't know if she should go to the police with her info. She does have, though, a friend from college that had helped her previously to get out of a bad relationship. So, of course, now that she's feeling like maybe she's in another bad relationship, she can go to this friend who's a very strong woman. That's her characteristic, named Lily. And Lily is, like I said, this is all going to be spoilers. So this is the basic plot of the book. Woman suspects her husband. Is he really the murderer? That's the plot of the book. Okay, so Lily is also a killer. And I don't know how to address this fully, because obviously Lily's character is established in the first book and the second book. She is as far as I know, she's the main character of the first book, and then she's a secondary character, I think, in the second book, but she is a main character in all the books, I guess. Lily kills people she thinks deserve to be killed. So she's not a good person. She has decided, this is her thing. She can decide who deserves to live or die. And that's like her ability to make these moral judgments is like her gift. And she even says this. She says, back in the day, if like in the olden days, if there was too many kittens in a litter and, someone had to take the bag of cats out to be drowned, kittens, then it would be me, because she can be cold-blooded about it. She can do things for the greater good. Now, I don't like any of this, but that's her character. And Lily meets up with Martha. They discuss things, and they talk about, you kind of get the past of their relationship and this ex-boyfriend that Martha had named Ethan. And Ethan was very controlling and pushed Martha to do a lot of weird things sexually. Oh, I'm worried about this. It's like I'd be monetized anyway. But the point is, he pushed her to be into a lot of weird stuff, threesomes and things that she was very uncomfortable with and never wanted to do. And then he was trying to get her to hurt people. Like, it was like he kept saying she was his special project. So Ethan is a psychopath. And Martha helped her to get away from Ethan. And so she goes to Lily helped Martha to get away from him. So Lily tells Martha, like, give me all your evidence, and your husband's going to be coming back from a conference. When he goes to the next one, I'll follow him, and we'll start figuring this out. Also, so another character that's going to be brought up is the main character from the second book, I believe, and I cannot remember his name. I'll put it here. I want to say Harold, but I could be completely wrong because he doesn't factor much into this. And I will say, too, for the Audible book, they switch narrators a lot, and some of them are terrible. So some of them I listened to at a much faster speed because they just were not good, and some of them I listened slower. So yeah, just to let you know, that is an issue I had with the Audible book. The narrators are not across the board all good. Some of them are pretty bad and pretty flat with their reading. But yeah, this guy is a former police detective, and like I said, I think he factors into the second book. I think he's the main character. And so this guy that is Lily's friend, who I believe is, like I said, established in that second book, he, former police detective, he has almost no character in this book. He's just there to kind of be a helper and like someone for Lily to get a hold of because she's worried about Martha's situation. So she kind of lets him know, this is like a situation with where we might be following a killer. And I think she doesn't contact him yet, but he's going to become important kind of later in the story. Like I said, I'll put his name here. So Lily goes to follow Alan, the husband. And she notices, like, he kind of seems a little like maybe he's a little bit creepy, kind of, like looking and checking out girls at these conferences. But is that really, like, is he like a predator looking for a murder victim, or is he just cheating? So as she's following him, she's not the smartest, and she realizes someone else is also following him. And instead of like deciding like, hey, I better back off because this is going to make it so much more easy for someone to get caught, she keeps following him, and she finds out that the other person following Alan was Ethan, the former ex-boyfriend, from back in their college days. Why on earth would he be here? And here's where all the pieces are starting to fall into place for me because it's so obvious. And like, this was described as a book with a lot of twists. That's not true. This is a very easy to figure out book because obviously Ethan is the killer. He's already been established as a psychopath, except for, and I'll get to this with one exception. So Ethan is the killer. Ethan Saltz, I believe is his full name, and he has been following Alan and committing these crimes. And unfortunately for Martha, once he finds out Lily's following him, he's very mad. He remembers that Lily was the one who broke up him and Martha, and he goes and kills Martha. So Martha's gone, and she was our narrator for most of the beginning of this book. So now we're in the middle of the book, and we get to switch to Ethan's perspective, which I will say I hated and was the most boring part of the book. I don't care. Ethan is not interesting as a killer. Ethan is every serial killer ever. He is everybody who grew up and in a normal household, but he was the one who was different, and he didn't feel things, and he wasn't like everybody else, so he could only feel things by killing people. And I'm like, it's one of those like, oh yeah, I remember I killed my grandpa when I was 11, and I did not care. I do not care about this character, and I don't mean this like it should have been interesting. It wasn't, because it was so bleh. Like, I don't know how to explain. But I've read so many murder mysteries with really complex ideas and like reasons behind serial killers, but like this is not it. It's like, yeah, I don't connect with people. I don't have any morals. I do whatever I want, and I don't feel bad about it. And then, I want people to eventually know that I'm a killer and like that I got away with it for so long. So yeah, it's your generic serial killer background. Ethan is a non-character for me. I didn't care about him, didn't like him, and he's a monster. Like he's basically just a monster character. I think that's the problem with these type of characters, is that it's like, oh yeah, you're just evil. So Ethan kills Martha, and that's kind of his like, I'm gonna get back at Lily murder. He had been kind of terrorizing Martha and Alan with the idea that eventually Alan would get caught and framed for all these murders that Ethan was committing in the same towns that he was in, and, you know, kind of trying to set him up. And there's like a very elaborate thing where you get to learn the whole backstory of how he was mad that Martha broke up with him in college, and he realized she got married and decided to like ruin it for her just because he could. So he followed her husband, started killing all these women that he had interacted with, and you find out, of course, that Alan is like a serial cheater. Like he just goes to these conferences and finds some woman that's like either willing to sleep with him, or he goes to a prostitute. And I'm just like, cool. So I mean, Alan is a different type of, he's like a sociopath, whereas Ethan is a psychopath. I looked up the difference. It makes sense. Um, but yeah, so that's what's been happening. And Lily immediately figures this out. She's like, yes. She contacts her friend and is like, hey, you're a former detective. Help me out. They start investigating Ethan and like what he's been doing. And they're trying to get like justice for Martha, I guess, which is odd because Lily doesn't have any reaction to finding Martha's dead body. She's the one who finds it. She breaks into her house and finds her dead body and then like doesn't alert the police because that's what she does. The like severe lack of police involvement in this book is going to be another thing that's like, wow, there sure was a lot of murder with no police involvement and a lot of sweeping things under the rug, but we won't talk about that. So she doesn't really have much of a reaction. She's like, Martha's dead. Doesn't cry, not upset. The only thing that really humanizes Lily in this book, and maybe she's better explored obviously in the first two, I can't tell you, I only read this book. But she does have a relationship with her parents, and her parents are older, and she's kind of taking care of them. And I was like, oh, those are like the only moments in the book where I was like, that's good. That's like well written. I like that she's having those conversations with her dad, and especially with her dad, she has this like thing where he was this famous author, and he's very well known, and they talk about books, and I was like, that's nice. But other than that, she's just strong, you know, cold, calculating female character. So, who kills people because she can, and if she thinks it's right, then it's right, and we cannot question this because she's a woman. I don't know, so annoying. And obviously we found out like she had killed people who had like wronged her in the past, and she killed some guy that she thought was gonna molest her when she was young, like pushed him down a well. And I'm like, all of these things can be solved by bringing in, you know, the police, you know, telling people what's going on. But like, she's just one of those like, I'll just take these things into my own hands because I know best. Whatever. So yes, they're on Ethan's trail, as it were. He had changed his name. He's married. He's like he's an art forger, and they're trying to figure out, you know, where he is and what's going on. And it's kind of like a cat and mouse thing, but Ethan's also hunting Lily because he wants to get back at her now that he's killed Martha. He's like, I'm going to go after her. She always ruined things between me and Martha, and I'm going to get her. And Alan kind of fades to the background for now until the end of the story. So Ethan kidnaps Lily at one point, and this is like the last third of the book is all just Ethan and Lily kind of talking over what has happened and the crimes, and she's been kidnapped, and it's boring, and I don't care. And he tells her, like, I'm going to be famous, and this is so good. Like, someday they're going to find the list of all the people I killed, and they're going to wonder and analyze for years and years. I will be famous, and my name will be everywhere because they're going to wonder why I did it and how I got away with it. And Lily's like, cool, I've killed people too and gotten away with it, but like, whatevs. And so he keeps her alive just because he thinks she's kind of interesting, but he's planning on killing her. But her friend, the detective guy, is investigating more, finds out, you know, where he lives, and finds out and starts talking with, you know, they talk to like siblings and all that. And of course, it's like, oh yeah, don't like avoid Ethan. He's a monster. Everyone knows this. And he eventually finds an address that is connected with him, and he goes there, and he thinks that that's where Lily's being held. Now, all throughout this, like, Lily's chained up, but you know there's no way, like, Lily is a strong woman character. You know there's no way that her friend is going to save her. Lily's got to kill Ethan, not just to avenge Martha, but because this is just how stories are written. So she cuts her ear, makes it bleed all over her neck. She finds a nail, she puts it so that she can slash with it, and she makes it so Ethan comes in, sees her with blood all over her neck, so he thinks that she's killed herself. So he rushes in, she stabs him a bunch with the nail, like cuts his artery here, wherever it is, and he bleeds out. And then her friend finds her. And that's the like very quick version of this book. But here's where I think this went from a boring, annoying book to a completely unreadable mess. Because Lily decides to go to his house where she knows the list is of all the people that he's murdered, and she's going to burn that list. Why? I couldn't, like, the justification, like, this is why I'm telling you that, oh, of course, my neighbor's doing yard work right now. Perfect. So I'm like, men think women are completely illogical, and this is why. Because she says, Ethan can't win. Ethan is dead. Ethan, for all you know, is burning in the fires of hell, as he should be. And you are going to deny justice for the victims, justice for the families, justice in general, but like, that no, this is like horrible morally that she is going to burn the list that has all the victims with the names of these people as if it means nothing. And she says, as far as I'm concerned, for the victims, they might as well have been struck by lightning. Like, basically, like, their deaths didn't mean anything because Ethan was just a random killer. And I'm like, that is so messed up. There are families waiting for closure. There are people waiting to know, like, what happened to their loved ones. There's a woman who survived his attack who will be forever living in horror and pain and fear that he will come back and finish the job, and she will not give them closure. This is not about Ethan. This is about Lily and her messed up morality, and I was so pissed because this is like her vengeance against Ethan. I was like, how dare you? And she says something like, I'm not going to do the police's job. And I'm like, oh no, honey, you've been doing the police's job. You're out here with your vigilante justice being like, oh no, I'll take care of it. And then you're going to deny justice to the victims? No, how dare you? I was furious. So that's what she does. She goes and breaks into his house after he's dead and finds the list and burns it, thereby denying justice to all victims and that these cases would be closed and that people would actually be able to move on with their lives. Thanks, Lily. The final chapter, and what I will just say is once again, not a twist, because you can tell from the beginning with Josie. Josie was not on Ethan's list. Obviously, Alan killed Josie. And you can tell because it is a completely different murder. When Ethan describes all the other murders, for one, he never describes Josie's. For two, once again, this is not a twist, it is totally different. He rarely ever speaks to the people that he kills. It is not personal. It is not like he interacts with them. He obviously is not a sexually motivated killer in any way. If anything, he's asexual. He talks about it in a very like negative, oh, well, like I use it to my benefit when it benefits me. I don't when it doesn't. Like I don't care about it. But he's not like a sexual predator. He's just a murderer. Alan is a sexual predator. He wants to find women to cheat with, and he has this thing about bad girls and dirty, or, you know, I don't know how to say it, like, he's like, these are like the bad women, and he's going to be with Martha, and that's the good part of him, and the bad part of him goes and finds prostitutes on these business trips to sleep with. But it goes too far with Josie in the beginning, and he decides to kill her and push her off. You know, the like sexually, he doesn't can't handle sexually liberated women thing was like I guess the tipping point for him. So yeah, he killed Josie, and at the end he is killed by Lily, which was not surprising either, because Lily has been doing vigilante justice throughout the whole book, and this is part of her story, and I'm assuming part of the first two books. This is what she does. So she pushes them off the building, and once again probably denies any kind of closure to Josie or her husband, who apparently loved her very much. I'm not going to get into their polyamory or whatever relationship. When Lily talks to Josie's husband, he does seem to be very in love with her, cares about her, is devastated by her death. But now that Alan has just been killed by Lily, with no one knowing that Josie was not a suicide, like she's not turning this over to the police. She just kills him, and he basically jumps off a building. She like forces him to it, and I believe he's drugged. But that's not going to bring closure to anyone. So we'll just continue this, like Lily being basically a terrible character, because she could have, at any point, Lily can walk into a police station. She has all the evidence. She has all the things to point to, like, no, this person did this person did this. But that's not important to her, because it's all about what she thinks is best and what she thinks is right. Whew. This book made me tired, gave me a headache, and like I'm not okay with this. I don't like this book. So that was A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. And if you like this author, like I said, there's nothing wrong with his writing. He can write fine. It just doesn't work for me on like so many levels. And it was so unbelievable at points that like, Josie's death being written off as a suicide. A lot of these cases were just unsolved or not looked into or like never connected, even though they're all very similar because Alan was, sleeping with prostitutes in the area of these conferences. So it just makes the police look very stupid and inept. But hey, that's the book. So that's my thoughts on this book. If you really liked it or you like this author, you can tell me down below in the comments, or if there's another book that you think is better. Oh, a recommendation. If you want a book, or sorry, not a show, a book, not a book, it's a show, but it's a K-drama where it's about a husband that starts acting suspicious and the wife starts to wonder if he's a psychopath. Oh my gosh, Flower of Evil, so good. So incredibly well acted, so good, so intense, the best. I highly recommend. I love this drama. I had to like step away from it halfway through because it was so intense and I was like getting too emotional, but it is like a masterpiece of like someone who feels like they need to hide who they really are, and then the wife kind of wondering like, who is this man I married? And it is great. Flower of Evil, watch it. Okay, and that's it for this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one, hopefully about a better book.